Welcome, everyone. It's a pleasure to have you here for our 9th webinar of the 2022 webinar series for the Ministers' Conference for Agriculture. And it's our final webinar today, and we're really pleased to have Loblaws with us for their take on the retail trends topic. So it's going to be wonderful to be able to speak with Ryan Goad. I'm Amy Melmock. I am the Director of Sector Development and Innovation for the Department of Agriculture. And before we welcome Ryan, I have a few housekeeping notes that I'd like to pass along. So by default, all of you out there in the digital world are muted today, and your audio is not with us, but we will be actually taking question and answers. I'll be monitoring them on the Zoom call as we go along. And in terms of questions, those will be following the presentation today. So before we begin, I'd like to offer greetings from Nova Scotia's Minister of Agriculture, the Honourable Greg Morrow.
Welcome to today's forum on retail and consumer trends with Loblaws. It's great Loblaws can be with us today. We appreciate getting their perspective on the choices consumers are making with regard to food purchases in Nova Scotia. From my perspective as Minister, I am sure that Nova Scotia producers and food entrepreneurs will continue to be leaders in product development. So it's good to have Loblaws joining this webinar today. I hope that this webinar will help contribute to the goal that is the focus of our department's mandate, ensuring Nova Scotians increase their consumption of local food. I'd like to thank our series sponsors, Farm Credit Canada, the Nova Scotia Farm Loan Board, and TELUS Agriculture for their support of today's discussion. This webinar series is drawing to a close, but I invite you all to join us in person for our Ministers' Conference coming up November 3rd and 4th. You can register now for our 2022 Ministers' Conference for Agriculture at the Halifax Convention Centre by visiting the Perennia website. I look forward to seeing you there in the fall. For now, I hope you find the insights presented in this webinar today useful and beneficial. Thank you for taking the time to participate.
Thank you, Minister. And as was mentioned, our presenting sponsors for the series have been Farm Credit Canada, Nova Scotia Farm Loan Board, and TELUS Agriculture. And we're going to take a moment to watch their video presentations.
Food keeps our country going, and so do you. If you grow it, produce it, pack it, or move it, you're a key to our future. And we're behind you every step of the way. We're FCC, the only lender 100% invested in Canadian agriculture and food, serving diverse people, projects, and passions with financing and knowledge. If you're behind Canadian food, we're behind you. FCC. Dream. Grow. Thrive.
My name is Alphonse Vermeulen. My wife and I farm 50 dairy cows on a robot in Urbania, Nova Scotia.
We actually got married in 2014 and bought the farm in 2014. And originally we owned a tie stall in Princeport, and it was just January of 2020 that we moved to this site in Urbania.
We've been working with the Farm Loan Board since the beginning, when we first bought the farm in Princeport. The Farm Loan Board was more flexible with the challenges we were facing trying to enter the industry.
They helped us actually to do this site switch. They provided us with a loan that helped us to retrofit the barn that we're standing in right now. That was a tremendous help. It was a big step for us to move from the tie stall to the milking facility that we have here.
So with the loan board, we're character lenders, and we do like to develop relationships with our clients. And what that means is through the years, we get to see how people are progressing and how they're growing. We get to see their weaknesses as well as their strengths. We do look at, we review their financials yearly, and we like to see where we can make that better and make them stronger.
So we're really a complement to the other lending options. You know, we say that we don't compete with banks or other lending agencies. What we really want to do is provide a solution for farmers that is different than what's being offered commercially. Really diving down on the business plan, working with them to make sure that they have a partnership with other programs or granting opportunities is really what we're focused on.
They understood a lot of things that even we didn't understand, and it really helped us navigate some tough times when you're trying to get into the industry.
Agriculture fuels the world. But as our food needs evolve, so will our need for information. We're making a commitment to everyone, from seed growers to grocers, to leverage the power of connection and technology, to build trust, to link systems together, and to use resources and information in new ways. We want to build something stronger for everyone, to share the responsibility by cultivating partnerships that drive the industry forward and harvesting ideas as transformative as the first horse-drawn plow. Because we believe in creating better food outcomes.
Thank you again to our series sponsors. And just one last reminder that our live conference is coming up November 3rd and 4th. If you would like to register, please go on the Perennial website, and you can actually be registered to win if you do register now at special early bird rates for a premium smartphone from TELUS Agriculture and TELUS Business Solutions. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our special guest today, Ryan Goad, who's the Senior Director of Procurement, Produce Floral and Garden for Loblaws Company Limited. And he's joining us today from the great province of Ontario, and we're happy to have him with us. He's got tremendous experience in the retail grocery sector, long arms into special projects, and he has a passion for innovation, for flavor, and for developing strong relationships and partnerships with growers. And we're interested very much in hearing his perspective today on fresh, tasting produce for Canadian consumers. So I'll hand it over to you, Ryan. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Good morning, everyone. And bear with me one moment as I pull up a presentation here. Amy, can you see that?
Yes, we can. Thanks, Ryan.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So again, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, Amy, for the kind introduction. I'll provide just a little bit more about myself. So Ryan Goad, Senior Director for Procurement with Produce, Floral and Garden. I've been with Loblaw for over 17 years now. Essentially, my entire professional career has been in food retail. And I've had progressive roles. So I started actually stocking shelves at one of our local superstore locations, and came up through the business and had a couple good mentors, and kind of here I am. I've been within produce procurement for about 12 years of those 17 in a variety of different roles. I've worked on a number of different commodity desks and had the opportunity to build a number of really great long-lasting relationships with the local Nova Scotian growers as part of that. So that's kind of my tie to the region so far, if you will. And now managing the team that essentially makes the buying decisions for all of our organization nationally for those departments. The decisions that determine what products we offer out to our customers week to week. So it's quite a big portfolio, but one that I'm very passionate about, and my team is very passionate about, and one that I'm very excited to talk to you about today with some of the retail trends that we're seeing. So with that being said, let's jump right into it here. First, I'm going to give just a little bit about Loblaw, who we are. Like, yeah, you've seen the company logo and whatnot, but I want to give you just a couple different stats of kind of what we bring to the market and what we can represent to growers, right? So obviously pretty big, but important to understand some of the scale. So with the Loblaw grocery stores and the Shoppers Drug Mart locations, we have over 2,500 stores across the country. Just over 1,500 or so of those stores carry produce as a primary assortment, or basically a dedicated large department for produce across the country. With those sites, 90% of Canadians live within 10 kilometers of one of these stores. So a very significant kind of penetration into the different communities across the country. And we are local to the vast majority of the Canadian population. A big piece that we have seen developing rather rapidly over the last few years is e-commerce. So in 2021, we did over $3.1 billion in e-commerce sales across the network. And in 2021, we saw a 200% increase in the number of products being offered to our customers online. So a really kind of expansive explosion within that space over the last few years, largely driven by the COVID pandemic and a really strong adoption for online shopping, remote working, and kind of general digital presence with our customers. And finally, I will also add there, PC Express delivery is now available to 50% of all of our customers across the country. So another very high penetration option for our customers who may want an alternative option versus shopping one of our brick and mortar locations. One number that me and my team very proud of, our Canadian produce purchases last year were right around $1 billion Canadian for produce purchased across the country. And we have plans to continue to grow our local business in future seasons. So we are not stopping, certainly not sitting on our laurels there. And then of course we have 4 great brands that come to play within our produce department. I've listed them here. You can see Farmers Market, PC Organics, President's Choice, and No Name Naturally Imperfect. In 2021, we listed approximately 850 new SKUs through those brands for the total business, and produce was a portion of those 850. So really a high degree of innovation, always looking for the next great tasting item, and an opportunity to surprise and delight our customers with something that is absolutely delicious. And then of course, out of those 4 brands, I have to note 3 of them are in the top 10 brands within the country, that being President's Choice, No Names, and Farmers Market. So it's a big company, right? There's a ton of stuff here, big national footprint, but I think it's important to understand how we break this down and how we think about the business. So within the total business, we operate 15 different banners across the country. Some of them are national, but most of them are regional focused and focused more on the unique requirements and wants of customers in different regions throughout Canada. And we split our business up into a couple different divisions, one being market division and one being discount division. And that allows us to really kind of tailor our offering and our focus in each one of these segments to target a different portion or a different aspect of the Canadian market. So that's very good. It gives us a lot of different tools to bring products to market and to talk to our customers who may be in different target markets. And I would say one of the big things from a procurement side, because we have this vast network of stores and banners, it allows us to buy a large range of products, varieties, sizes, grades, quality levels. And my team really is focused on buying the entire crop wherever possible, both the extra large jumbo diamonds to go into the high-end stores, as well as still very good quality, but maybe more moderately sized product to go into our discount channels as well. So I think that's what kind of gives us a unique opportunity in the market versus some of our major competitors. And lastly, I will say, due to our size, we also have access to some pretty unique resources for our grower base. So we have an entire team called Loblaw International that has vendor development managers who are in the field, that are an extension of the buying team, that are really our eyes and ears in the produce field. and they help connect the growers to the procurement group. So things like growing support, communication, walking them through different requirements of the business. We believe that this is a major tool in our toolbox here that help us build meaningful vendor relationships. And we have 4 different individuals solely dedicated to Canada across the different regions. And I will speak to one of them for the Atlantic region later in this presentation, because if you're interested, I highly suggest you reach out to Graham, who's our vendor development manager for Atlantic Canada. He is a wealth of knowledge and out there to support both existing and new vendors as well. So that being said, let's talk about some retail trends today. It was quite a challenge to narrow it down to something that would fit into the presentation today. So I've tried to narrow it to kind of 5 key things: corporate governance, plastic waste, loyalty, local Canadian produce, and of course, wrapping up with customer trends and expectations. I've organized them this way to try and start a little bit larger picture, a bit more macro in a sense, and then we'll narrow it down to more specific produce consumer insights and what we're seeing. Okay, so hopefully you stick with me through this one, and I will try to go through as expeditiously as possible. And please, if you have any questions, reach out to Amy in the chat, and we'll get to that in the Q&A at the end here. Okay, so let's talk corporate governance here. Customers are expecting us as a company to take a stance and have an agenda for these macro big picture subjects. No longer can we just say, well, we're a retail corporation. That's not really what we do. It matters to our customers that we're making advancements in these areas. So I've put up 3 key ones that we are working on for this year and into the future. I'll start with ethical business conduct, and that really is around how we hold ourselves accountable on how we operate our business and deliver on our objectives, and make sure that we do it in a moral and ethical way that is consistent with our customers' expectations of us and how we go to business, right? We have launched an integrity action hotline. So this is basically an anonymous tip hotline where anyone can go in and submit a complaint, a claim, a concern completely anonymously. And there's a dedicated team of people within our organization that don't report into any specific group. So they are absolutely autonomous and third party. And they investigate all of these claims and follow up with a resolution. And this is a big one for us because it's a safe and accessible way for people to reach out if they have a concern with something that they see. And it's, again, a big way for us to hold ourselves accountable to the standards that we set for ourselves, right? The other 2, fighting climate change and advancing social equity, they make up the balance of what we call enterprise social governance, or kind of how we govern ourselves in the big picture here. And both of these are massive topics, right? We've laid out and we've published some pretty aggressive targets for ourselves in these 2, and we're making progress. And again, holding ourselves accountable to drive this body of work forward. So under fighting climate change, you'll see we've committed to a 0 emissions fleet by 2030, 0 food waste to landfill from our operations by 2030, and a net 0 carbon emissions for operations. So this would be things like our DCs, stores, offices by 2040. Some of these things, we have a pretty good plan on getting there, and some of these things are exploratory, and they're things that we need to potentially develop new technologies and new applications to get there. But it's something that as a business and an organization, we are committed to do. And then lastly, certainly not least, advancing social equity. Our customers want to do business with a company that is aligned to their personal beliefs at the end of the day. In our organization, we call this work diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it's important to us, not just for the customers, but we believe it's a really core component of our culture and how we bring our colleagues together across the country. Within this greater body of work, we have a number of different pillars. So things like embracing your roots, able at Loblaw, go further women, proud to be me, all of these different bodies of work with their own targets, objectives, events, and all to improve the overall, visibility and inclusion of all of our different colleagues and customers across the country. And I will say this includes representation targets for management and executives by 2024, which is a pretty significant commitment, which we're proud to make. And then finally, of course, I cannot forget the PC Children's Charity, right? In 2021, the charity supported over 800,000 children across Canada by getting them nourishing meals to help them learn and thrive. And we have pledged an additional $150 million in fundraising and support by 2027. And these are all things that, as a company, we talk about proudly, we take very seriously, and our customers want, well, and expect to hear these things from us to understand where we're going with these initiatives. Next up, let's talk plastic waste. So this is a huge one, right? I'm sure everyone's heard about it. I will say that coming directly from Galen Weston, he's really kind of anchored this conversation in our organization with the 3 points here. So did you know that plastics in our ocean will soon outweigh fish? Did you know that each of us eats a credit card worth of microplastic each week? And did you know that the packaged goods industry, retail industry, is responsible for 1/3 of plastic waste? So our viewpoint is, why shouldn't we be at least 1/3 of the solution? Okay. And when it comes down to it, I hate to really kind of recite something that we all know, but reduce, reuse, and recycle are the 3 key pillars that we're focusing on. And I can talk through that a little bit here. So let me set the table. We started on this journey of investigating better packaging materials before the COVID pandemic. During the pandemic, I can say that the focus temporarily shifted away from packaging and more around just securing food supply for Canadians. If we think back, especially in 2020, the labor challenges, things were locking down. We really had to focus on the core competencies of just getting product into the stores for Canadians. Now that we're coming through that and things are on the way to stabilization, we are absolutely getting back to focusing and pushing on our plastic strategy. So in fresh produce, I think it is important to acknowledge that in many cases, packaging can and does provide a big benefit to quality, to shelf life, and ultimately a reduction in food waste once our customers bring that product home. So how do we take all of that and plug it into the 3 R's here? Well, first, we look at the reduction. So are there opportunities to remove unnecessary plastic, i.e. single-use plastics, plastic hangers, and within produce, unnecessary packaging? So a big item that was in the news recently was the double wrapped cucumber, where each item is individually wrapped and then those 3 are wrapped as well. So opportunities where we can remove packaging without really impacting freshness, shelf life, customers' expectations of how long that product will last in their fridge. But it's not just going to stop there. We are committed to looking at every item in our portfolio and really asking ourselves if we can redesign the packaging to deliver the same freshness and quality, but using less of the material. So some of it would be reducing the size, reducing the weight of the material. Some of it is removing the material altogether. And for those items that do benefit from packaging, we move down to the next 2 points, the reuse and the recycle, right? So for the reuse, investigating the idea of post-consumer content in our packaging. So instead of using new virgin plastics, can we use a larger portion of pre-recycled material to improve the overall lifespan of plastics through the packaging chain? And then lastly, improving the overall recyclability of the materials in general. So in produce, we've done a lot of work to eliminate black plastics in our department because they are typically more difficult to recycle at municipal centers, and they cannot be recycled into anything other than more black plastic. So it's a bit more of a limited recycling loop. But again, we're looking at this from across the board. And we have published a pretty aggressive target about making our control brand and in-store packaging recyclable and or reusable by 2025. So quite a bit of work going on there. I will say though that it's a tough project to manage because it seems like the packaging technology and R&D is so rapidly developing. Things are changing almost monthly. And being a retailer of our size, we have the ability to impact a large portion of Canadian growers. And we want to ensure that any change that we propose is sustainable and sensible for long term for ourselves and our grower partners. And that's where it can get a little bit complicated because what we think is a good alternative today may not be as favorable in the future when the new technology comes out. So we definitely need to ensure that we balance driving towards these initiatives and delivering on them, but also making sure that we do it in a way that is long-term sustainable for our business and our partners. Next up, PC Optimum and loyalty programs. So this has become a pretty massive one for us over the last few years. So, prior to Loblaw and Shoppers Drug Mart coming together, each company had their own respective loyalty program. And when the businesses came together, a big piece of work started to combine those two. And we launched it nationally as PC Optimum. It has grown significantly since its launch. And today it is the largest retailer loyalty program in the country. We have over 15 million active members on this program. And the customer response has been extremely positive. We have redeemed over $1 billion worth of points in 2021 with our customers. So think about the value that's going back into our customers' pockets by participating in this program. It's really significant. And the really interesting thing about this program from a produce perspective is it lets us dial into very specific regions, commodities. We don't necessarily have to print a flyer and send it out to 20, 30,000 households, right? We can get much more micro, much more specific and targeted in our advertising and in our offers that we put out to our customers. And saying that, there is a very strong digital presence as well, with the app, with the online, with us being able to push offers seamlessly to people's phones and whatnot. We've also found that the lead time to innovate and to deliver new products through this online world is much, much quicker than typically we would have found with in print or more kind of traditional marketing methods. So there's a lot here. It's very promising. There's a lot to say about a one-to-one customer relationship and really custom tailoring those items and offers specifically to them. We've seen a really, really positive customer response rate, much higher than we would have seen with anything to do with like general purpose coupons or anything like that. It resonates well, right? Now, the challenge for us with all of this is, how do we bring it all together? Because we have this massive business with a bunch of different banners, a bunch of different departments, and we have this great loyalty program. So one of the opportunities that we're looking at is tying this all together within our organization. So how can we integrate the digital programs into the everyday business of the stores? How can we use to drive customer loyalty and retention across the store? So I have one example in my business that I can share. So we revamped and relaunched the Garden Center recycling program. So across our garden centers in Canada, we offer PC points for customers who return their used gardening pots to us for recycling at the end of the season. These pots are returned back to the manufacturer, ground down and melted down, and then directly turned into the pots for next season, which is awesome, right? So this helps drive our corporate social responsibility initiatives. It helps with plastics recycling. It helps with product packaging. And at the end of the day, it helps drive customer loyalty through this program by offering them points that they will then turn around and spend within our store network, right? And this is just one small example of how we can create value for customers by linking all of these things together. But I think it's, solving for that is going to be the key in the future for us within produce, certainly, to get the most value out of this program and unlock additional sales, additional tonnage, and customer interest in these items. Local Canadian produce is the big one here, huge one, right? I am very happy to, again, say $1 billion in local purchases last year. We are extremely proud of that. And it's a massive program for us. I know certainly everyone on my team rallies behind it. We're extremely focused on delivering a strong local season. And really, it's in many cases the peak of freshly grown produce for our customers through the year. We procure from over 400 Canadian produce growers and packers across the country, and this ranges in size. On the upper end, some of the larger commercialized greenhouse operations, all the way down to independently owned family farms, some of which we've been working with for multiple generations. And my personal experience when I was on a category desk, I saw people's children grow up in the business and then take over in mom and dad's footsteps and maintain that relationship. And that's, exceedingly rewarding for us to see and be able to work with businesses like that. And that is something that is unique to smaller, more homegrown type businesses. And again, we really enjoy working with those types of folks within the produce department here. I also find that if there is a more direct connection between the owner operator of a company and the products they sell, there's usually a much tighter control around quality. And they usually come to market with a better, more consistent product at the end of the day because the commitment is there. So I just want to touch a little bit. You see the display pictures on the slide here. These are photos from our last year's local program with some of the in-store displays, as well as a flyer on the right-hand side here. And I just want to again hit home that the local program for us is extremely important because A, it injects money directly back into the Canadian economy, which helps everybody. 2, the products are grown closer to home, which means there are less trucking miles, which helps us reduce our carbon footprint. And 3, again, it comes down to this concept of quality and shelf life, right? Produce is a perishable commodity. And for the most part, the closer that you can procure that product and reduce the dwell time or the time between harvest and when it gets into our customers' hands, the better quality and better shelf life you will see for that product. The customer is more likely to be delighted by that purchase and come back to our stores looking for another great head of cauliflower, head of lettuce, cucumber, whatever it was that they purchased. And we believe that it represents a great value proposition to our customers because of that. Okay. So how do we actually go to market? Like you see the flyer here. So we have a number of different merchandising and marketing programs. We call them Grown Close to Home and From Your Farmers. And the idea between all of this is connecting our customers to where their food is coming from, which is a major trend that we're seeing. We allow our vendors to kind of share their story in some of our flyers. So you'll see on the right-hand side, there are 2 different grower biographies plugged in there. Those are all done regionally by the different banners. And it lets them tell the story about who they are, how many generations, where they're located, what items they grow. And it's a great sense of pride for the growers that we deal with to get featured in these things. And we're happy to feature them, to share the great story. We're very proud of our vendor relationships, especially the local ones, right? And then we also have a series of this content online. And over the last few years, we've been incorporating more video and more social media into this program as well. And recently, we were actually able to get a camera crew and go out to a couple of fields with the grower and have the grower tour the fields as the product is growing and it's about ready to harvest and selling to our ship-in to sell to our customers. So again, working to connect our customer so they can very clearly understand how and where their product is being grown. And then lastly, to add on to the more in-person experience, we're bringing back a series of in-store events now that COVID is subsiding, hopefully here, called Grower Days, where we will invite our growers to come into our stores to set up a little display, maybe show some of their goods and their wares, and connect with our customers directly that are shopping in our stores. And again, not to really over and emphasize this, but it's about making that connection to our customers with where their food is coming from. Another thing within the local space that's become a big focus for us is this idea of hyper local. So with a company our size, it's very easy to think of local as Canadian product, keep it big scale, but we want to get more detailed than that. We want to get all the way down to understanding where our growers, where they're located within 50 kilometers of one of our stores across the country. So a pretty monstrous undertaking when you think about the number of stores that we have, but it matters to our customer. And we think that there's absolutely opportunity there to call out, for example, if we have a great potato grower 10 kilometers from a series of our stores, we should be calling that out and making sure that that potato grower is servicing those stores, right, at the end of the day. And, in some of these cases, that means that we're looking at dealing with smaller vendors than we would historically be looking to deal with, and maybe facilitating direct-to-store deliveries instead of going through our central warehouse, which helps with cost, helps with logistics, and also, again, cuts down that dwell time between harvest and sale of the product. It also means that as a company our size, we need to review the potential barriers to entry of a new vendor, especially in produce. So there's a huge body of work going on within our organization to review the minimum requirements for a business to become a Loblaw vendor. And we call this vendor onboarding. So right now we're looking at everything from a vendor's experience, who they can communicate with, is the information readily available, do they know what questions to ask, who to reach out to, do they have access to do so, all the way through to the more kind of legal minimum requirements that are needed, things like insurance, workplace audits, technological integration, all of that stuff, right? So I think ultimately the goal for us here is to strike a balance between still maintaining a good level of visibility and control into who is approved to ship into our stores, but also opening it up a little bit where we can deal with these smaller vendors who are hyper local that may not have traditionally been, able to ship into a warehouse that, maybe 6, 7, 8 hours down the road. So really excited to work on this one. And I will add that we are absolutely actively looking to increase our local grower base in Nova Scotia. Okay, so at the end of the presentation, I will provide a key contact for Graham, who I mentioned before, who is our Atlantic Vendor Development Manager. He is the first point of contact for anyone looking to learn more about the Loblaw business. Certainly if they're looking to become a prospective vendor as well. Graham is our man to start, and then from there it can get filtered down to the appropriate buying team to work on the relationship from there. And lastly, but certainly not least, looking at consumer trends and expectations. So what have we seen over the last couple of years? I've wanted to bucket it into 3 main themes that really shouldn't be much of a surprise to anybody working in retail, that being availability, value proposition, and then finally quality and flavor. 3 kind of big picture subjects, but we have seen actually some really unique trends in each one of these that I'll walk everybody through here. Excuse me one moment. So let's look at availability. So having product in stock when our customers want it is more important than ever. Customers have a higher expectation than they have ever had before, that we are in stock all the time. When the lockdown conditions came through the peak of the pandemic over the last few years, we noticed that our customers shopped less frequently and increased their average basket size. So in essence, they were going out less often to complete their shopping, and being out of stock on an item for a customer through that situation had a greater impact, and it was more likely to influence how they felt about their overall shopping experience if they were out of 1 or 2 items out of 40, as an example. And that's become sticky. We've seen customer expectations continue as we start to come out of the pandemic. They're not relaxing their expectation of what they expect to see when they go in to do their shopping. And because of this, our ability to consistently service our stores has been a major focus point for us. We have been specifically working on increasing our service level into our stores, whether it be from direct vendors who ship into the stores or from our warehouses. And I'm happy to say so far, we have seen some pretty significant increases in that service to stores this year over last, and again over 2 years ago in 2020. So we are on the right track, but definitely something that will continue to be a big focus for us. And speaking of product availability, I want to make a note here that it goes beyond the traditional brick and mortar grocery stores, because we also have to ensure that we're servicing our home delivery and curbside pickup businesses. And having items in stock continues to be one of the main factors that drive customer satisfaction in those segments as well. So definitely, kind of hitting on all of the different avenues that we engage our customer. And dare I say, for those online ones, there's definitely, how do I put it? There's more of a convenience type of expectation built into that shopping experience by ordering online and picking up. So I would argue that availability is even more important in those types of transactions than a conventional brick and mortar shopping experience would be. And thinking back to the PC Optimum program and how all of that ties together with building customer loyalty, getting it right is going to be a huge enabler for continued use and adoption of these different programs, and to continue to entice our customer to shop with us in different ways. Next up, value proposition. So this is kind of the elephant in the room, right? At the end of the day, it's always been important to our customers, no doubt. But coming through the pandemic, we have definitely seen an emphasis and on the importance of the value proposition that we're offering them. I will say food retail in general has seen growth during the pandemic, driven by limitations on restaurants and the hospitality sector through those lockdown periods that we saw, and customers had less options to dine out. We're now starting to see that revert with restrictions being relaxed and things opening back up, which is great for the economy. But as retailers, we have to stay extremely focused to ensure that we are offering a compelling value proposition for our customers to, at the end of the day, try and keep as many of those customers that we had gained over the last 2 years. I think it's important to recognize that there is a wide range in how the pandemic has affected our customers. It has affected a lot of families very differently. For some, it can range from unemployment to being put into some really tough financial situations. And on the other side, it may have enabled others where, to save money. They're working from home, they're not paying for commute, and all of a sudden, they may actually have some more discretionary income as a result of it. It really is a wide range of how we've seen this impact the customers, especially with their pocketbooks. I would say, generally speaking, when we look at public sentiment studies, a large portion of the population is concerned with the economic outlook and debt load in particular with our country. The pandemic has impacted a lot of different livelihoods. It's driven more families to utilize government assistance programs and put pressure on discretionary spending. In addition to that, we're seeing rising inflation across all sectors. I mean, just reference gas prices as a pretty vivid illustration of that right now, right? And this is putting even more pressure on that discretionary spend on top of everything. So from an offering perspective, the idea of value proposition, what we offer has to deliver on our customers' expectation. As prices go up, customers will tend to hold a higher expectation for what they're getting for their money. So as an example, if you used to pay $2 for something, now you have to pay $3 for something, you're going to expect a positive or have a higher expectation for a positive experience with a higher retail price point. So we have to absolutely keep quality and consistency as a key focus for deliverable to our customer to maintain that value proposition. Okay. And lastly, talking about value, I believe that we're starting to see a shift back towards traditional discount stores as a result of this pressure on discretionary spending. The economic and sociological factors are going to be with us for a while. And it's very important for us that we position our business properly with the right value propositions to ensure that we're meeting the needs of our customers. And that is, again, one of the benefits of being a retailer of our size. We have multiple banners across the country that really allow us to tailor our offering to different customers who are looking for different things and who have different value propositions that they're looking for. And really getting that value proposition right by balancing cost, quality, and availability is going to be probably the key thing to our continued success in the coming months and years. And then finally, specific to local produce with Nova Scotia, with these criteria, I think this is where locally grown produce really shines. So for availability, the produce is grown right down the street. So generally very, very quick and easy to turn around into our locations, which is great. It has the shortest lead time, which allows us to be flexible to make last minute adjustments to make sure that we're in stock for customers. It supports local farmers and communities. It continues to be something that customers want to understand where their food is coming from. It doesn't require long distance trips, trucks, or sea vessels. So again, helping us reduce that carbon footprint. And it's a lot of the freshest and best tasting product that we can provide for our customers. Again, delivering on that idea of quality and flavor. Okay. So that being said, I wanted to talk just a little bit here about what I view as really important for a vendor to build a lasting business relationship with Loblaw. And this is coming off of, how my team operates, my personal views, as well as my 12 years in Loblaw procurement, right? First up, I will say that food safety certification is a mandatory requirement. At the end of the day, we have to ensure that the food that we are providing Canadians through our network meets these food safety certification standards. And in In all cases, that is a non-negotiable requirement. We can talk about all of the other things with the direct-to-store deliveries, the barriers to entry for a new vendor, but we have to be food safe to start the conversation. Okay. Secondly, really an ask for our vendors to help us understand our customer. And by understand our customer, I mean keep the customer in your minds when you're making decisions, when you're thinking about products. How will this get received in the market? What's the value proposition for this? Why would this really deliver something that our customer is looking for, right? And really that kind of feeds into our next one here, which is research and development. This is that innovation and flavor side of me coming out here. Really focusing on the future for sustainable growing, focusing on looking at new varieties, improved growing practices, again, to deliver a better quality product with better shelf life to our customers. One thing that's helped us in the last couple of years is specifically understanding the market and exploring ways to innovate or expand existing programs. So we've cited a couple things in recent publications here about working with growers to extend local seasons by looking at new planting methods, new post-harvest storage methods, where we can offer Canadian produce at times of year where typically we wouldn't be able to offer Canadian produce. And that's been a nice way to extend the program for us and for our vendors to realize incremental sales, incremental business. And again, I really am emphasizing this heavily. Let quality and flavor be at the core of your decision making. I think at the end of the day, the bitterness of a low price will be remembered long after the sweetness. Sorry, the bitterness of poor quality will remain long after the sweetness of low price is forgotten. My apologies. That's kind of a guiding principle here. So we need to make sure the product that we offer is on point and going to deliver against our customers' expectations. And then finally, honesty and transparent relationships. I mentioned some of the multi-generational growers that we've been working with. At the end of the day, we want to be in business next year, and we need our vendors to be in business next year, right? So being very honest, very transparent in our business dealings, it really does help build trust, build authenticity with the two parties. And we found that the longest lasting vendor relationships are ones that really lean into this and partner together.
Ryan, I just want to point out to you, we're almost at our time. I know you have information.
I've got one slide left. I'm good to go, Amy. Thank you. And lastly, has to go with contacts here. So my contact's on the screen, and then below Graham Smith, our contact, who is our vendor development manager for the Atlantic provinces. Please note his email, note his phone number down. He is actively looking to help us find new growers in the Atlantic provinces, absolutely including Nova Scotia, to help us build the local footprint. So please, if you have an opportunity, or if you know of an opportunity, please reach out to Graham. And lastly, just a thank you for everybody. Thank you very much for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk about our business and share the insights about our customer. And at the end of the day, the customer is at the center of our decision making. And I'm always interested to talk about ways that we can help serve them better. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ryan. And for anyone who's on the call today who didn't get a chance to write that information down quickly about contacts, this actual presentation is being taped. And so you can go back and see the tape, or you can just reach out to Perennia and they'll pass along this contact information for Ryan and for Graham. We are over time, but I did want to thank you, Ryan, in terms of all the incredible insights that you offered today. And just ask one question, because it did come up in the Q&A. I know you talked about addressing barriers to entry, and the elephant in the room is always around that. For Nova Scotian small producers is always around food safety. Is that one of the barriers to entry that you're looking at, not in terms of its mandatoriness, but in terms of how you engage potentially with producers to bring them up to that standard, or to inform them of that standard?
That's a very good question, Amy. So short answer is yes, it is absolutely something that we're willing to work with growers on. In fact, we do have come to mind a handful of examples in my mind where we connected with a grower. They weren't necessarily where they needed to be from a food safety standpoint, but we worked with them to get them there and to set them up within our system. And that's really where this network of vendor development managers comes into play, and a massive resource for growers who are looking to develop business with Loblaw. So, Graham, for example, knows all of the ins and outs, the details of what's required, and will be able to, set up visits to come out, see the facility. And, if there are specific gaps or things that need to be addressed, he is there to help highlight those for the growers.
All right. And hopefully we'll do our bit on the other end to help with that equation as well.
Absolutely.
All right. We do have to sign off, folks, for today's webinar. And again, thank you to you, Ryan, and to our participants and to everyone who took part in the whole webinar series. We look forward, as always, to people's feedback and to the live conference that's to come. And we hope Loblaws will be joining us as part of that as well. So thank you very much, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.